Here's what nobody tells you. The biggest risk in private lending isn't default, it's drift. It's the borrower who makes their payments, but never exits the loan. And if you don't manage maturity with structure, you'll be the one holding the bag a year from now. I'm Chris Nichilo, the wealthy lender, and the founder of Magnetic Capital Group. Since 2019, I've helped investors fund over $110 million into private mortgages across Ontario, and we've exited every single one of them without a single investor loss. Now that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we manage our files with structure, especially at maturity. Most lenders don't talk about what happens when a loan is approaching its end date, and that's why so many get stuck. They don't get ghosted, they get drifted on. A borrower makes their payments, ignores their exit strategy, and 6 months later, you're still on title with no plan in place and no leverage left. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to use extensions and renewals the right way, not just to cover your risk, but to keep the borrower focused, keep your capital moving, and keep you in control from start to finish. Okay, let's talk about maturity, because how you manage a loan in its final 90 days has more impact on your performance as a lender than most people realize. The average length of time it takes a borrower to retire your loan isn't just about their financial situation. It's about your ability to manage them clearly, early, and consistently. And that process starts 90 days before the maturity date. The moment you enter that first 90-day window, your job is to establish contact and find out what the borrower's intentions are at the maturity date. Are they planning to renew? Are they looking to sell? Are they working with a broker to refinance? Because here's the truth, if you don't proactively manage upcoming maturities, most borrowers will simply assume that their mortgage is being renewed automatically, just like it is with their bank. And when that happens, they'll cruise right past the maturity date with no new agreement in place and no plan for how things are going to be handled. That to me is the worst position a private lender can be in. You're past maturity, you have no signed extension, no renewal agreement, no terms or fees in place to manage the current time frame, but the borrower is still making interest payments. So on the surface, everything looks fine, but legally you're in no man's land. And things can spiral out of control very quickly from there. Because now you're trying to enforce rules that were never formally agreed to. And here's something a lot of lenders don't find out until it's too late. Relying on clauses in your original agreement, the ones that say, if the borrower goes past maturity, their rate will increase dramatically, or there's an automatic fee that's applied, those fees will be very difficult to enforce in court. And even if you do win in court, it'll cost you more in legal fees just to get there than the clause was worth in the first place. That to me is fool's gold. Those clauses might give you leverage in theory, but they're no substitute for a clear, signed agreement that sets out the terms after maturity. That's why your number one goal in the 90 days leading up to maturity is to get the borrower to agree to something in writing before the maturity date hits. It doesn't matter whether it's an extension, a renewal, or a scheduled payout. What matters is that you've got something that governs what happens after that loan matures. That's how you stay in control, and staying in control is everything. Because here's the other piece. Borrowers assume that renewing with a private lender is like renewing with a bank. They think it's automatic. They think there's no cost, and they think that if they keep paying the interest, they can stay as long as they want. But private lending doesn't work that way. We're not long-term lenders. We're short-term solutions. Yes, private mortgages are expensive, but they're manageable for a short period of time. Go 2, 3, 4 years long in a private mortgage and the risk goes up dramatically. That's why I want borrowers to feel that cost. I want them to think twice before just renewing, because the fees aren't just there to cover administration, they're there to create friction. That friction is what keeps them moving towards their original exit strategy. Let's not forget about that. Because when a borrower gets too comfortable, they stop trying to get out. They stop calling their broker. They stop shopping for a refinance, and they stop thinking about selling. And that's when your 1-year bridge turns into a 3 or 4 year holding pattern that starts eating into your yield and increasing your exposure. So part of our job as lenders is to be clear from the start. A renewal isn't automatic, it's not guaranteed, and it's not free. It's something that must be applied for, agreed to, and paid for, because we're not here to be permanent, we're here to be effective. That's the foundation. Now, in part 2, let's talk about how I structure renewal and extension options and how I use pricing, timelines, and conditions to keep things moving forward with clarity. Okay, so now that we understand the importance of managing borrowers before maturity, let's talk about the options we give them when they're not ready to pay out. And more importantly, how we structure those options to keep control of the file and protect our returns. In my business, I offer both extensions and renewals, but they're not the same thing, and they're definitely not priced the same way. Let's start with renewals. When a borrower applies to renew their mortgage for another full 12 months, I treat it the same way I treated the original deal. Same pricing, same underwriting standards, same lender fee. If I charge 3% on the way in, they'll pay 3% again to stay for a second year. Because the risk in year 2 is often higher than year 1. They've already had 12 months to fix their situation. If they haven't exited yet, something's off, and we need to be compensated for that. It's also important for them to feel the weight of that decision. Renewing should never feel like a free ride. It's a commitment, and it comes with cost. Remember, they were supposed to exit after 12 months. Now, not every borrower needs or wants 12 more months. Sometimes they just need a bit more time, and that's where extensions come in. I offer short-term extensions in 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month formats, and here's how I price them. A 1 month extension costs 40 basis points. That's 40% of 1%. But that's equivalent to 4.8% over the course of a year. That's higher than that 3% that we would have charged for a renewal. A 3 month extension costs 1%, which annualizes to 4%. And a 6 month extension costs 1.8%, which is 3.6% annualized. So the longer the extension, the cheaper it becomes on a per year basis. Why structure it this way? Because I want borrowers to think carefully about how much time they really need. Short extensions are available, but they're not cheap. They're designed to be uncomfortable, just enough to push them forward and keep them on track with their exit plan. I also set conditions. If you want a 1 month extension, you must show proof of an imminent exit. That means a signed mortgage commitment from another lender or a firm sale agreement with a closing date within 30 days of the original maturity date. That way, I know the money's coming, and the extension is just a bridge, not a stall tactic. Now, for 3 month extensions, I'll often waive the requirement for a new appraisal, which makes it faster and easier to approve for last minute people. But again, there's a cost for the flexibility. Now, here's another key piece. I only allow payment plans for 6 month extensions and full renewals. If you're taking 1 or 3 months, you must pay that fee up front with no exceptions. That structure does a few things all at once. First, it rewards organization. If a borrower applies for an extension or renewal early, they have more options, more flexibility, better terms. Second, it creates accountability. If they wait until the last minute, their options narrow, the costs rise, and the terms get stricter. And third, it keeps the borrower focused on the exit. Nothing about these options is cozy. They're fair, they're structured, but they're not designed to make anyone want to stay. Because again, that's not the goal. Our job is to give the borrower just enough time to succeed without making it easy to drift. And when we get that balance right, we protect our investors, we protect the borrower, and we protect the integrity of the model. That's how I approach renewals and extensions. It's not about being harsh. It's about staying in control and using structure to create movement, because maturity isn't a deadline, it's a decision point. And when the borrower knows that, they're a lot more likely to make the right one. So, to recap, renewals are full 1-year terms with full lender fees. Extensions are short-term solutions priced to create urgency, structured to maintain control, and always designed to move the borrower toward the exit. The more time they need, the better the rate, but the longer they wait, the fewer options they have. And that's exactly how it should be, because we're not here to make private lending permanent. We're here to make it effective. So, thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with how you structure your own renewals and extensions. Until next time, stay clear, stay structured, and happy lending.